The flickering neon sign outside your window buzzed like an angry hornet, casting an eerie red glow across your tired face. It was 3 a.m., graveyard shift at the Dusty Spur Hotel in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You, Ethan, were the only soul brave enough, or perhaps desperate enough, to keep watch over this dusty relic of a bygone era. The air hung thick with the smell of old carpet and forgotten dreams. You were engrossed in a particularly dull conversation with the security guard, Gary, a man whose enthusiasm rivaled that of a houseplant. Just as your eyelids felt like dropping lead weights, Gary chuckled, a sound surprisingly lively from the perpetually grumpy man. "Hey, Ethan," he rasped. "You heading out anytime soon? My truck's kaput, and the tow truck won't be here for another half hour." Now, normally, you wouldn't bend the rules, but the prospect of staying cooped up in this dusty tomb of a place any longer was unbearable. A mischievous grin spread across your face. "Sure thing, Gary," you said, a little too chipper for the hour. "Save yourself the wait. I'm heading out myself. My brother, bless his heart, seems to have gotten himself stranded outside town and needs a lift." That was a complete lie, of course. Your brother, Leo, lived a comfortable 2-hour drive away. About as likely to be stranded as a goldfish was to win the lottery. But the seed of an idea had sprouted in your mind. Leaving a hasty note for your, hopefully understanding, boss, you bundled Gary in your car, dropped him off at his modest apartment building, and with a heavy foot on the gas, sped towards the highway. The night air whipped through your hair as you drove, the landscape a blur of cacti and desolate stretches of highway. Reaching Leo's town, you called him up, expecting a sleepy greeting and a mumbled, "Thanks for saving my butt." Instead, his voice was laced with panic. "Ethan, you won't believe it," he stammered. "You won't believe what just happened." You explained the fib about needing to leave work, surprised at the strange coincidence that Leo needed help at the same time. But his response chilled you to the bone. "That's not weird, Ethan," he said, a tremor in his voice. "I'll show you what's weird." Arriving at Leo's place, you found him pacing frantically, his typically relaxed face etched with worry. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen for a beat too long. "Listen," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He pressed play, and a voice, distorted and inhuman, filled the air. "You're stuck," it rasped, sending shivers down your spine. You exchanged a horrified glance. The message was short, ominous, and devoid of any context. Neither of you had any clue who sent it, or how they knew about Leo being stranded. The hair on your arms stood on end. This wasn't just a prank call. This was something different, something darker. Leo explained that earlier that morning, his car had sputtered and died on a deserted stretch of road just outside town. He'd managed to flag down a passing truck, which, coincidentally, belonged to the very tow truck driver who was supposed to be fixing Gary's vehicle. Now, with the phone call as further proof, the whole situation felt incredibly bizarre. Suddenly, the air in the room grew heavy, a strange tingling sensation prickling on your skin. The fluorescent light flickered ominously, then died completely, plunging the room into an inky darkness. Panic seized you both. You fumbled for your phone, the pale light on the screen the only source of illumination. Then, a faint scratching sound came from outside the window. It was barely audible, but in the silence, it sounded like nails scraping on glass. Slowly, you both approached the window, hearts hammering against your ribs. Holding your breath, you peered outside. The moon, obscured by an unsettling veil of clouds, cast an eerie glow on the deserted street. But something else caught your eye, a figure, tall and gaunt, standing across the road, its face hidden in the shadows. It held its hand up, its fingers gnarled and twisted like tree roots. In its other hand, it clutched a phone, the screen displaying the same words that sent chills down your spine. "You're stuck?" A scream tore from your throat, but it died down as quickly as it began. You looked at Leo, his face a mask of terror. The figure remained motionless, its presence a suffocating weight in the suffocating darkness. Then, just as abruptly as it appeared, it vanished. The lights flickered back on, banishing the oppressive shadows and leaving you and Leo bathed in the harsh fluorescent light. The phone call, the creepy figure, it was too much to process. A suffocating silence filled the room, broken only by your ragged breaths. "We need to get out of here," you finally managed, your voice hoarse with fear. Leo, his eyes wide with terror, nodded in agreement. You grabbed your car keys and raced to the door, flinging it open. But a wave of disappointment washed over you. Your car, parked on the curb just hours ago, was gone. Panic clawed at your throat. Had the figure with the phone somehow gotten rid of it? Or was this all some kind of elaborate prank? A twisted joke gone too far? "My car," Leo stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Suddenly, a loud bang resonated from outside. You and Leo exchanged a terrified glance, frozen in place. Another bang, followed by a scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across the street. You crept slowly towards the window, peering out with a sickening dread. The street was empty, but then you saw it, a dark shape lying near the curb. It was your car, headlights smashed, hood crumpled like a discarded soda can. A wave of nausea washed over you. You could have been in that car. What's happening?" Leo stammered, his voice barely a whisper. You had no answer. Your mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. But the events of the night defied logic. The strange phone call, the ominous figure, the vanished car. It all pointed towards something sinister, something lurking just beyond your understanding. A loud screech pierced the night, a sickening sound that sent shivers down your spine. You grabbed Leo's arm, fear making your fingers dig into his flesh. Suddenly, a spotlight sliced through the darkness, illuminating a tow truck parked haphazardly across the street. Its engine roared to life, and then, with a sickening crunch, it lunged towards your car, metal screaming against metal. You watched in horror as the tow truck rammed your car again and again, each blow more brutal than the last. The scene was like something out of a nightmare. The tow truck driver, a deranged monster in the harsh light. Finally, with one last thunderous crash, the tow truck obliterated your car, leaving it a mangled wreck of metal and glass. The driver switched off the engine, then stepped out of the cab. It wasn't the tow truck driver you met earlier. This man was younger, his face obscured by a dark hood. He approached your house slowly, a menacing gait, a glint of something manic in his eyes. You backed away instinctively, pulling Leo behind you. "You're stuck," the figure rasped, his voice distorted by the hood. "Both of you, stuck here." A horrifying realization dawned on you. This wasn't some random prank. This man, this figure, he knew about the earlier call, about Leo being stranded. He'd orchestrated it all. But why? What did he want from you? Before you could voice your questions, the figure let out a chilling laugh, a sound that scraped against your sanity. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he tossed a small object at your feet. It landed with a dull thud. You looked down, dread pooling in your stomach. It was a phone, identical to the one the figure held. The screen flickered to life, displaying one word in bold, blood-red letters. Nowhere. The man in the hood turned and walked away, disappearing into the night as quickly as he arrived. You stood there, frozen, clutching Leo's arm as you both stared at the broken phone. The chilling word a stark reminder of the terrifying truth. You were trapped, not just in this town, but in a nightmare with no apparent escape. The night air hung heavy with an unspoken threat, the silence broken only by the distant wail of a police siren. You knew you had to call for help, but what would you tell them? The story would sound like the ravings of a madman. The phone calls, the vanishing car, the deranged tow truck driver. But what choice did you have? You and Leo stumbled back inside. The phone with the chilling message, a grim reminder of the horrifying ordeal. The night was far from over, and the true motives of the hooded figure remained shrouded in mystery. You were stuck, yes, but you wouldn't give up. You had to find answers, and more importantly, a way out of this twisted game you've been forced into.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more similar horror stories.